Just to start with, tell us a bit about yourself and your procurement journey.
Right, well, hi, I'm Pat Durai, and I'm currently Group Head of Procurement of Energy at Sky, and that is a slightly wider role of procurement looking at energy and other wider sustainability as well. But my journey in procurement is like a lot of people who are sort of mid-career in procurement is I kind of found procurement, or it found me, I don't know. My background is technology, so I have a engineering degree, and I went into a graduate role as a solutions architect, so designing network solutions for small medium customers, and then they said, could you price this for us, please? So I did a bit of commercial management, and then I was headhunted to do what we call the poacher turned gamekeeper, so going from the commercial side into procurement, and I have been here ever since, and buying lots of different categories, but mostly all in the indirect space, so mostly technology, telecoms, software, hardware, all of the cool stuff, marketing, media, corporate services, HR, yes, and finally I've landed in most recently contact centers, property, and energy.
Oh, great. And you've obviously just come off stage here on day 2. Your panel was about carbon reduction and that journey.
Yep.
So what was that like? What was kind of the discussions and kind of the reaction from the crowd?
Yeah, it was a really, really interesting topic. And it was interesting because the other panelists aren't necessarily procurement people, so I was the only sourcing person on the planet who goes and does the deals. But I think it's interesting that we have to start bringing those two things together. That was what I really reflected on afterwards, is that sustainability is great, and you can talk about these things, and it's really important to set those strategies, but delivering it and the how is where we're going to actually make those changes. Otherwise, it's just a lot of talking and not a lot of doing. And so that's, I think, my first piece. I think it was a really interesting session. I think we did a lot of chit chat, and it was very nice and casual. I think we also realised that we're all facing a lot of the same issues across industry. Like if we are trying to decarbonise, it's the same thing. We're all manding to rowing in the same direction, which I think is really positive. It's just going to be really challenging, and I think there's going to be some challenges in that and how we do that, and some tough choices to be made.
And to kind of look into what you kind of doing day to day and at Sky, how are you kind of integrating sustainability into kind of your procurement function?
So Sky, I think it's really lovely working at Sky, and one of the reasons I think a lot of our colleagues really love working at Sky is Sky have always been very ambitious in this space. We were the first broadcaster to go carbon neutral in 2006, which is many decades ago, we realised on reflection, and we have always been pushing that boundary and pushing forward. It's because it's something that goes across business, and there's so many people that are interested in this as part of their day jobs. We've sort of created a really interesting kind of cross-functional team of green people who really love delivering sustainability, and it's created a really lovely network within our business. And how we sort of put that into procurement is it just starts with, as any other procurement requirement is, right? Like audit rights, like GDPR, like anything else. It's just we try to treat it as a BAU thing that we need, and it's just making sure we're asking the right questions of the supply base, that people are clear about why we're asking those questions, and getting that data and information, and then supporting partnering with the supply chain to deliver that.
Perfect. And obviously there's so many pressures that come in procurement, and nonetheless is cost. You're there to save money. So with something like sustainability that perhaps kind of increases cost pressures, how do businesses look to how do they find the right balance to make sure that they're sustainable while also balancing the bottom line?
Yeah, I think it's a few things. So I think number one, it's not assume it's a big bang and you have to make all these changes tomorrow. You don't. You can make them in your existing kind of funding cycles over the next few years. It's just really good to know where you're going to get to, and then work towards that goal. It's not assuming that you've got to throw down all this capex tomorrow. But as you're making business decisions that start to have a rolling impact, making sure that sustainability and reducing carbon and all of those positive things are in those decisions from the beginning. I personally think, and I say this in every conversation, is I'm in energy, and that is the area that I look at, is we have to be reducing the energy consumption just of what we're doing day to day. So being more efficient in what we're using as well. So the cheapest energy and cheapest electricity, the cheapest gas, is the gas you don't use. So, and I always say that, I sound like a middle-aged dad. It's fine, because it's true. And we need to be taking that ethos into how we I guess, how we operate our businesses as well. So it isn't just, I think they are very much two sides of the same coin. I think it gets a bad rap because people think green solutions are always more expensive. But as they become more widely used in the economy, they become cheaper and they will become the new standard, right? Like even if you look back 30 years ago, we didn't recycle 30 years ago, and now we have multiple streams of recycling in our homes, and it just feels really normal. That is how this is going to become. It's just going to become BAU, part of doing business, and we want to be ahead of the regulation. Let the regulation catch up to us, rather than suddenly having to realise, oh, the regulation's ahead of me, and I've got to catch up. If that makes sense.
Great. And to carry on that kind of theme of looking ahead, kind of in this space with sustainability within procurement and supply chain functions, what do you think are going to be the trends over the next couple of years?
So regulation, and making sure that we're ready for that regulation that's coming, and it's coming in the EU and it's coming globally. So being ready, so knowing where those impacts are. How does it now go from we know what we need to do, how do we put that in a policy, how do we push that into the supply chain, how do we support the supply chain and develop our suppliers and our value chain to meet those goals, and working in partnership, not a stick, much more of a carrot, much more of a this is why you need to do this, and selling the business case. I think it'll just become how we do business. I think it's just going to become much more embedded in what we do, and people really need to get on with that. I think the more that we get on with that, the more of us, I think particularly here, it's really interesting how a lot of people are in the same boat. We're all trying to solve the same problem, but to solve the problem, it just has to become part of how we work.